Hello, what is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this today's Common Sense Ability Draft. This week's Common Sense Ability Draft. I've been pushing this forward constantly because I've been kind of busy. I've been very busy during the week. Sorry I did not get an upload out yesterday, but I was like, I tried to. I was playing Dota and I tried to record it, and apparently XSplit wasn't too happy. About my maybe my Dota play, because it ended up I ended up having 10 frames a second. At least on the recording, I did not have 10 frames a second in game, but on my recording, I definitely did have. So, but jumping right in it, when you're drafting a carry, there's one thing that you gotta pay attention to off the bat. Am I gonna be drafting a carry? Two things determine this. One, your position to draft. And second of all, your hero. Now, moving on to the draft screen, you want to be one of the first 4 heroes to draft. And second of all, you want to be having a hero that can be turned into a carry. A lot of heroes can. It's very like a whole lot of heroes can be turned into carries. It is next to everybody, but there are a few exceptions, such as, for instance, guys like, let's just say Lich or Oracle or something. They're extraordinarily difficult to get turn into carries just because of their attack speed. Most carries have high DPS, aka damage per second, but these guys take so much effort and so much time to just build into carries that it's almost not worth it. Now, having said that, carries are, as I said, DPS. They're damage per second. Let's just take a quick look at some good damage per second carries here. If we're just gonna jump into this right here, Void, Sniper, Phantom Assassin, all great examples of DPS carries, because they have that little tiny edge that gives them the damage per second that they need. There are also strength heroes like, let's just say Huskar, for instance, who can turn into a DPS hero. Some great things is actually to combine strength abilities with agility abilities, because usually strength heroes, what makes them strength heroes is of course their great mana pool, 2000 versus the snipers 1600, and that's gonna get turned into a lot more once you get your strength amplifiers and such, because it's also gonna amplify your damage. But take a look at that. He has a very high base hit point, but very low armor compared to somebody like a Phantom Assassin, which means that he's going to be taking a lot of physical damage. And also, on the other hand, Berserker's Blood gives him very great, basically gives him very great, how do you put a word on that? Very great magic resistance, because of the exact levels, like 8% bonus resistance, which is something that a lot of agility carries lack. So if you combine great armor with, for instance, a Huskar's Berserker's Blood, you have a recipe for absolute mayhem, because you're pretty much unkillable as it is from physical damage, and you cannot get taken out by magic damage as well. Which means that by default, you're going to be having a good time. Partly because of your decent right-click damage, which scales rather well on agility heroes. They don't have a whole lot of damage amplifiers as in basic sense with the in your regular abilities. Of course, the Coup de Grace is a damage amplifier, but she does a whole lot of damage on her own. Which is something you can combine. If you get the Coup de Grace, which is probably unlikely, but if you get the Coup de Grace and Berserker's Blood, you pretty much have a recipe for success, and that's what you gotta look for. You gotta look for the combinations that'll enable you to kick ass. You gotta look for combinations such as basically the Phantom Strike and the Berserker's Blood, or something that'll give you that slight edge above somebody else. And you gotta know the hero that you get, because if you have somebody, for instance, a ranged, let's just say, for instance, Oracle. Let's just take Oracle as an example. Not very good right-click damage. Actually, okay, that's fair, a lot better than I expected. But armor is not very good, which means that you're gonna be taking a lot of right-click damage if you're up against right-click heroes. Spirit Breaker, I think, is another good example of not very good example of low armor. But you gotta have guys that have low armor. If you have somebody with low armor, don't go for Berserker's Blood because you're gonna die anyway. You can of course always combo Berserker's Blood with something like an axe on a Phantom Assassin. If you can Phantom Strike, for instance, a good combination would be Phantom Strike into Berserker's Call into I just closed my Faceless Void there, does not matter, into Berserker's Blood and do a whole lot of damage. Basically, Phantom Assassin, Phantom Strike into Berserker's Call into Berserker's Blood. That's what you gotta look for. You gotta look for combinations that will enable you to have the upper hand. Because with Berserker's Call, you're gonna be almost unkillable on armor. Usually, what gets Axe is his low magic damage resistance, which is more than compensated for by Berserker's Blood. So if you can get that off in a proper combo, you got your game. Another thing you can do, usually with melee carries, you want to be building them somewhat tanky so that they can actually like take a beating, and that's what, for instance, Chemical Rage and Berserker's Blood do so well. They enable you to stay alive throughout. If you, on the other hand, have a range carry, you want to be building DPS, and a lot of it. Constantly be building your damage. And the reason why actually carries kick in late is because they have a lot of passives. For instance, Sniper has 2. The more passive you have, the later you're gonna kick into the game. So if you're an all passive hero, you're gonna suck in the early game, but you're eventually gonna end up being the bitch of everything. I had a Gyrocopter game, just to pluck an example, where I had Moonglaves, take aim, and I think assassinate or something, and I ended up sucking balls in the early game because I just couldn't, like, I didn't have anything like to farm up off. I just relied on Moonglaves to actually farm, but I ended up kicking so much ass because I just built damage and damage and damage, and the Moonglaves and the take aim, they allowed me to stay off and do a lot of damage off the back of that. They just allowed me to stay out of the fights and kick a lot of ass. And actually, one of the cool things about Sniper is by default, his attack range is very, very low, but with the take aim, it becomes very, very high. Now, if you have, for instance, let's just take a look at somebody like not a Luna, because she has a very, very low attack range. Let's take Drill Ranger. I think she's got, 625. You got a whole 75 more out of your take aim. Because usually carries try to compensate for something that they lack. For instance, Drill Ranger does not have very, very great armor. Marksmanship, excellent armor. Amazing armor. Decent right-click damage, not very good. No problem. Persistent Aura. Gonna give you that extra range damage bonus that you'll need. But that's what you gotta look for. You gotta look for something to compensate for something that you lack. Usually that's very, very hard on Intel, because they're mediocre at everything, so there's nothing really to compensate for, which makes it a problem to build carries off of them. So usually, if you are a carry, or if you want to build a carry, you gotta secure yourself. You gotta make sure that you actually, well, you can't really make sure. You gotta have either an agility or a strength, and then you gotta build off the back of that. And that right there was my Facebook. Yeah, and then you gotta build off the back of that. On the other hand, if you want to be like an initiator or something, you gotta just build strength. Keep building what you already got. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Good damage amplifiers, just to plug a couple of good examples here for you. Fury Swipes, absolutely amazing. Overpower, Headshot, Bashes are always welcome. Berserker's Blood, Burning Spears, those are some good damage amplifiers that you'll need. Good ultimates for it, of course, Coup de Grace. Most of you know those. Most of you know the good ultimates for instance, carries. I mean, if you have agility, you gotta go for Drill Rangers. Marksmanship, if you're strength, it's a very, very good idea to go for Chemical Rage. If you're actually a strength hero, it's actually a very, very good idea to go for Pudge Flesh Heap, even though Pudge is a doable disabler. The Flesh Heap will increase your right click damage as well, which is something that Pudge lack. Or not right click damage, attack speed. So you just gotta build off that. You gotta build on your weaknesses, and just make sure to overcompensate for them. So you have like mediocre and then overcompensated skills instead of being, for instance, a support like Shadow Shaman, who's mediocre at everything. That's basically carries for you. That is pretty much what I had in store for you guys. It did get kind of a messier video than I first had imagined, but I made this on a very short time span. Like, I had absolutely no time to put one of these together, and I felt I owed you guys one. So thank you for watching. Nevertheless, hope you got something out of it, despite my kind of ghetto setup off of this. But yeah, time schedule has not been on my side, and yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes. But nevertheless, thanks for watching. Really looking forward to hitting those 50 subs. If we get 50, remember, we get 50 subscribers before March. It is giveaways to you guys, so please do go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Go check out my other videos. I have some really good casts. I cast for UGC. I'll be casting tomorrow night with Steph. If you haven't checked him out, checked our cast together, go do that. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Casting for UGC League 1. Thank you so much for watching. That's it for me. Signing off. See ya.